And so I'm going to invite you all just to begin by taking a deep, full breath, relaxing your body, and just noticing what's here. That is awake, aware. What's here that's pure and innocent. And just to feel into that. Perhaps all day you've been running around here and there. And I'm going to invite you just to settle in and to notice your divine presence in the here and now. This is, after all, what Satsang is all about. You realizing the truth of you. Right here and right now. As you breathe and feel open. And you smile and acknowledge that you are divine, that you are holy. And to help with this, I invite you just to scan your body, to notice anywhere where you are efforting, anywhere that you're tight or tense and could soften. Anywhere that you may have a spiritual concept or dogma between you and I, or you and yourself. And simply to soften this and be directly with what you are. So just noticing the muscles of the face and the jaw, the spine, the shoulders, the solar plexus, the belly. Can I soften, relax, and arrive here? And as you do so, you may notice some persistent aspects of self that are wanting some love, needing some support, wanting to be included. And so let us love these as well. After all, this is a path of love. Sometimes we forget. This is a path of love. Our essence is made of love. And so if there's any struggle within you, I encourage you just to breathe, relax, and soften and include the struggle. Soften around the struggle, breathe into it. Discover the parts of yourself which, again, may be just crying out to you for more love. And so we say, yes, I'm willing to breathe peace into fire. I'm willing to breathe peace into fire. I'm willing to breathe love into the places that feel tender or beat up by life. So we're softening, softening, softening. And noticing an innocent presence at the heart of all pain is an innocent presence, a quiet strength, an indestructible presence. And so just gently breathing in and breathing out, And if you like, you're welcome to open your eyes, keep them closed, whatever is suiting you in this moment. So, a couple of quick announcements here. For those of you who are in the Kundalini awakening process, I have a Friday group. If you haven't heard about it, I encourage you to join us. It's Friday midday. It's nice for the Europeans and Australians if you want to join us. It's been quite a powerful and healing group, and been receiving a lot of great feedback about it. So I welcome you to join that. And of course, the Wednesday night meditations as well. So I think I did my part with the announcements. I'm still dragging my feet about this retreat. I just have some complications with childcare and getting back to school and this and that. And it's looking like it'll probably be the end of March or the beginning of April. So I'll let you know as soon as I do know. And one thing I'll point out is I think we've entered Mercury in retrograde for any astrology people out there. And that's normally a difficult time to try to plan anything. So anyways, I'd like to hop into some questions, but the first question actually inspired something I'd like to speak about a little bit tonight. And forgive me, I guess I didn't copy down who the author of this question was. But hi, Craig, I have a question. I understand the Buddhist concept of the middle way and discern the wisdom of it. Recently, I've been studying Tantric verses in the Radiant Sutras by, I believe it's Lauren Roach. I don't know if I know who that is. And swept into their wisdom as they encourage to drink and experience life deeply, almost to excess. Yet the two seem contradictory, are they? Thank you. This is what I'd like to speak about. Just a gentle comparison between, say, the direct path, the middle path, and the tantric path. And so, during our short little meditation in the beginning, my first question was, can you become aware of that which is awake? Right here, right now. This is the direct path. Just forget about all spiritual ideals and just notice right here, right now. What is it that is awake, alive, innocent, and free? What is it that hears the sound of my voice? Is that not vast, spacious awareness? And so this is the direct path where we go right to the source. And I'd like just to start with this question, say, hey, everybody, wake up. Unhook from your egoic thinking mind and come directly into the truth of your being. And so I encourage you, even though the meditation is done, let's continue with the direct path. What's here that's awake, alive, vibrant, and free? Oh yeah, there's something quiet here. There's something still. There's a vast spaciousness right here in this room. There's a vast spaciousness in the space of my own mind. It's a space in which all my thoughts flow through. If your mind was solid, like concrete, well, concrete doesn't have any thoughts. There'd be no thoughts moving through you. But your mind is already vast, spacious, and free. And so this is the direct path where you're acknowledging your holiness, your divinity, and the here and now. I was listening to the radio today, and I was reminded of this Led Zeppelin album, Houses of the Holy. That's you. You are a house of the holy. Your body is a house of the holy. There's holiness within you, throughout you. It is you. So this is the direct path. And then a couple minutes into the meditation, I invited you just to notice, are there any places within you where you are efforting, where there's a meditator who's trying or striving, or where you have dogma? Can you soften that? Can you soften that? So we don't have like a fundamentalist view of dogma, and we don't have, we don't throw all dogma out the window, all teachings out the window. We don't completely let go of effort, and we don't effort so much that it causes us, to have an inner conniption fit if we don't realize the truth right away. So the middle way is the realization of not too tight, not too loose, just really gentle and open. When you choose the middle way, not too tight, not too loose, you naturally stay in the direct experience. If you become too tight, it's because you're thinking or efforting too much. If you become too loose, it's because, in a sense, you're too lazy and too lost in your thoughts. And you just get swallowed up in samsara. So basically, I asked you if you could feel into your body and notice anywhere where you're efforting, and can you relax? And then near the end, if you noticed, I asked you if there's anything here that wants to be met with love. So this is the path of Tantra. The willingness to meet life with love, whatever it is. Whatever it is. And so we're scanning the body and noticing, are there things that are persistently tight and tense? Are there aspects of my human self that I've ignored and denied? Can I meet them with love? And so the way I respond to this versus that, almost always, is with both hands. Because true non-duality includes everything. It doesn't dismiss, it doesn't throw out. If it's true non-duality, it has to embrace everything. And so, in response to the question, which are better, which is the best path, we need all three. We need all three. Most of you have come from the world of non-duality, the direct path. But if you've been on that path, for a year or two, or 10 or 30, you might notice that some people are fundamentalist about it. It kind of gets a little bit tight and tense. If you ever run into the Nondual police, and they'll tell you what language you are allowed to use and not use. Like I've had people tell me I'm not allowed to use pronouns. I don't know how to function in a world without pronouns, There is happening here. There is arising here. We can play that silly game that, some people play. And so you realize that each way, the direct way, the tantric way, the middle way, each has its benefits, each has its shadow or shortcoming. And so I like just to take the good fruit from all three. And then, you're not going to have a shadow there. If you focus solely on one, especially in a tight fundamentalist way, you're going to create a shadow. The person who asked this question, they were speaking about more with Tantra, of like the real positive side of Tantra, the real, I'll say that differently, the real luscious side of Tantra. I don't like to talk too much about the luscious side of Tantra because people because it just leads to a shadow that normally revolves around physical intimacy. But let's go back to the question. With the Tantric teachings, I'm swept away into their wisdom when you are encouraged to drink and experience life almost to excess. So there's two words in there that probably will lead to a shadow. Swept away and drinking to excess. Now, in a real funny or silly example is my daughter and I just watched a Disney movie from probably 1990 or something. Heavyweights is what it was called. I was going to call it Fat Camp because that's what it was about, about these kids who were bigger, and they got sent away to Fat Camp, and all the kids didn't want to be there. And there was one night. I mean, we don't need to go into the details of the Disney movie, but I mean, it was really funny. It had an all-star cast with Ben Stiller in it and his father. But there was a night when the kids, basically tied up, the head camp counselor, the leader of the camp, because he was making them exercise every day. And they ordered 50 pizzas, and they had the cans of whipped cream and Hershey's maple syrup. They're pouring it all over themselves and just were covered in it. And then they woke up the next morning, of course, their bellies hurt. We all know this experience of eating too much pizza, too much sugar, whatever it is. It was a really funny movie. It's kind of touching too. But of course, with Tantra, this is where we tend to, things can get a little bit silly. We can become a bliss bunny if we're just chasing the luscious side of Tantra, where we take it to excess. And most of us have to learn this the hard way, where we go on a meditation retreat and then we're studying Tantra, and then it seems like the whole time it's only about physical intimacy. Like, is that actually helpful, or what are we actually doing with our life? What are we actually doing? After a while, if they're spending, more than 3 minutes eye gazing, it begins to get a little bit sickening, a little bit weird, a little bit bizarre, And so the way I teach Tantra is more about embracing pain, embracing suffering, and discovering aspects of ourselves that have been ignored, that have been denied, and discovering truth in those places. I like to use the example of anger. When you embrace anger, oftentimes we discover compassion and power. Compassion and power. And so should we drink in life to excess? I don't think so. But if you open your heart fully and completely, and you truly surrender with abandon, oftentimes you'll see beauty everywhere. It can be overwhelming beauty. And can that feel like excess? Sure. But I call that good excess. We're not chasing desire, but in a sense, we're just seeing beauty in an overwhelming way. I found myself with my daughter, my wife today. We went sledding, and I was just looking up at the sky and saw this red-tailed hawk. He must have been a couple thousand feet above me, just way up there, chasing thermals, brilliant blue sky in Colorado. The sun so bright, we were all getting sunburned, and I just felt completely at one with this hawk, with the sky, with the hugeness. And so this is how I like to practice Tantra, where you just surrender into life fully. But I don't need to eye gaze for too long. So anyways, I love it and I respect it all. So anytime we're doing, is this better than that? We're viewing life through the dualistic nature of mind. And for me on the path, we need all three. Most of us can't just sit down and realize we are awareness, vast, spacious emptiness, vibrant, loving, compassionate heart, and immense strength. Just in a couple minutes, most of us need to learn how to soften and not effort and relax the mind. That's the middle way. Study some scriptures, but not take it too fundamentalist, in a fundamentalist type of way. And then most of us have aspects of our humanity that we've denied or ignored and need to be included and met with love and discover the truth, like the true nature of the heart is overwhelming love, compassion, and yes, bliss. Overwhelming love, compassion, and bliss. And oftentimes we don't discover that unless we take up the Tantric path. And again, I'm not speaking about physical intimacy. Speaking about you opening your heart in a fearless way and discovering and realizing how beautiful this world actually is. So anyways, that was a beautiful question. I apologize. I don't remember who the author was. So let's see if anyone has a question here. I see a couple people have raised their hand. I'm going to encourage some new folks to speak up, say hi, if you haven't yet. And also, I'd just like to say, for some of you, it's funny that this week there must have been something happened astrologically, because a number of you disappeared at the same time, and then you came back at the same time. And so I just want to give you a big smile and a big welcome, a big hug. It's so nice to see your faces again, and I really mean that. It really makes me smile. I seeing you come back, and no judgment, of course, in any way. Sometimes life carries us away, and we need to take care of other business besides hanging out with your friend Craig. So here's a question from Jordan, whose last name is Love and Peace. I like that. So Jordan, I'm going to try to unmute you, and you see if you can say something, Jordan.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hi, Jordan.
So that question, the last question here, those three paths are for me in particular the non-dual Vedantic paths and the Tantric traditions. I really resonate with what you're saying about the need for all three. But
Yeah.
when I delve deeply into one or more of these paths, so many of the encouraged practices or traditions around them, and not in a dogmatic way, but the traditions around them that have been proven to like help you go deeper into one aspect of these, the like the recommended practices or the lifestyles, sometimes are conflicting with one another.
Sure.
And so what I found in my life is like when I'm diving deeply into a certain aspect, like if I'm in a relationship with a partner or the world heavily, I notice it's more like the tantric, and like
Yeah.
the world is showing me all these different parts of myself that are kind of a barrier to that love in daily life, and like self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And then I'll find like parts of my life where like now where it's like I'm teaching from home and I'm, like alone a lot of the time, where it's more like the non-dual and
Yeah.
like not eating, following more of those Vedantic, like sattvic foods and, do's and don'ts as far as like Patanjali's, um, like, like the do's and don'ts that really help you,
Sure.
like have a quieter mind and connection with like these non-dual aspects. But when I see the balance for all three of them, sometimes it's like I understand that and I notice it, but part of me wonders, like, is it even, to what extent is it possible? Or I guess I'm still finding how to integrate all three of them within balance,
Sure.
because it seems like my path has been so far to go deeply into one and then kind of transition deeply into another, depending on the phases of life.
Yes. Yeah, Jordan, you said it excellently. That was beautiful. And when I first read the question, I actually had that similar thought that within my own life, there were times when, say, I would just dive deeply into the non-dual path and just follow that, say, to its end. And then there were other times when I realized, oh, I was really struggling, like you said, in relationship. And there were things that I needed to meet with love and include, in this path. And then there were times when, I realized, I was being way too serious with the non-dual teachings, or, way too loose with Tantric teachings. And I needed to, connect with the middle way again. The point I was trying to drive home here is that any true master of, say, any of these three traditions, they're going to have a balanced approach in all three. Like any great non-dual master knows all about love, knows all about inclusivity, which is the truth of Tantra. Oftentimes people cite Ramana Maharshi as like this very strict meditating, monk, monastic fella who just let go of everything. But if you looked at him near the end of his life, hell, he was just an absolute love with his students, with his ashram, with the mountain, Mount Arunachala. He even had a cow that he just loved so much named Lakshmi, and he would just, overwhelm his cow with love. It's just so sweet. And at the ashram there's a place of her Mahasamadhi, it's like her gravesite, where it said she's attained her final enlightenment before she died. And that was a tantric path that between Ramana and a cow, and it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And there's all kinds of householders that would come to the ashram, and he would remind them of the middle way, and they'd say, but you said this about this non-dual teaching, and he'd say, oh no, just love your wife fully and and completely, and take good care of your children. And but it's true, there's seasons of your life, and there were times when I would dive deep into one path and then I'd circle around to another, because the thing about this world is it doesn't really let you get away with being exclusive. And by that, it's like if you show up as a fundamentalist in any tradition, a God's going to start slapping you in the face. And a fun joke, and maybe it's not so fun, but I'll say this completely different, because this won't come out as PC. But I've worked with a number of fundamentalist preachers and their children. And over the years, God has brought me a couple of individuals, excuse me, who were preachers, like Southern Baptist preachers or whatever. They had really harsh views, say, against people who are gay. And then, of course, God brings them a child who grows up and who's not heterosexual. And it's like, so God's trying to straighten them out, straighten the preacher out, and, straighten the fundamentalists out. And, it's a brutal path, of course, for that kid. The kid has a big heart and they're teaching mom or dad to love them fully. But life does the same thing with us. Like if we become too strict, I've even met with some of the wives of prominent non-dual teachers, and and then I hear, who are too fundamentalist in their approach. And their wife is constantly saying to them, or the husband saying, hey, you need more love. You're too serious. You're too strict. You cut me out. You close your heart to me. And so here, their wife or their husband is giving them feedback. They need to loosen up. you need to step on the middle path. Maybe we need to explore some Tantra together. And that's the beautiful thing about this realization. It's not just an inner thing. It's not just us and our path. The world is the path. Like that's how non-duality is. It's the world. It's not just us waking up out of life. Life is already awake. And it's speaking to us and it's inviting us to wake up and join in unity. Not just in, the dark emptiness of the night sky, but in the loveliness of life, the beauty of life. And my wife, she came home from work with some lilies, in the middle of winter. We just been standing, staring at them, eye gazing, at the lilies, just drinking in their beauty, their glory, their majesty, falling in love with them, their fragrance, And so the big thing to pay attention to, if we want a teaching here that comes from within, is you listen to your body. Because your body will tell you when you're lying, when you're contracting, when you're excluding. Because basically you'll feel like garbage. So if you step out of truth, you'll feel like garbage. So if you're fighting with your partner, if you're fighting with yourself, like if we're too strict with our diet, say, I'm bad because I want chocolate or whatever. Your chakras, they start shutting down, literally. They start contracting. And so your body will speak to you. And the beautiful thing about it is when you're open and you're in truth, the body tends to be relaxed, carefree, spacious, and just transmitting, spaciousness, love, and strength. When you're outside of truth, you'll find one of those centers or all those centers will shut down. And so it's just a nice thing to be mindful of like, oh, I'm feeling really tense while I'm meditating. I'm feeling really tense while I'm, contemplating these teachings. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm going about it in too strict a way, too fundamentalist of a way. The big thing that people do in a relationship is they tend to project the teachings onto their partner, do violence to their partner in the name of spirituality. You should eat this, you should do that, you should meditate more, you should do more yoga. Well, Adyashanti said this and you're not doing that, so you're wrong. And so it's just, I've seen so many silly things, myself included, that couples do to each other. And the beautiful thing, like you said about relationship, is it teaches you. It teaches you. So you listen to your body and let your body teach you. Listen to your relationships, let relationship teach you. And listen, of course, to the teacher, life itself. Because everything is really working to wake us up. But most of us think it's the opposite. Most of us think that we're fighting against life, but it's us against life trying to wake up. But it's really the opposite. God is calling us all forth. If we could be innocent and humble enough to realize what's happening here. What's happening here. So anyways, thanks for showing up today, Jordan. It's good to see you. Yeah. Yeah, I love your hair too. It's awesome. Top notch, top notch. So, anyways, good to have you today. All right, let's see here. Um, how about David? David, are you here? Do you have a question, David?
Yeah, what's up, guys? How's it
Hi,
going?
David.
Um, so yeah, I was wondering a little bit about, I've heard you talk about head, heart, gut, and I've gotten a taste of all three of these. I did a meditation of yours last night that was really in the hara, and it was pretty cool and everything. And so I was wondering, you say typically people awaken head first, then heart, then gut. But it seems like sometimes it's like it's not like, oh, like I'm not awakened to this vast, spacious, empty realm as tangibly as I have been at other times, but maybe I'm like really, really into the heart, for example, or like, oh, I want to explore this other space. Sometimes, is it a little more jumbled? Like, I mean, obviously it is because it's been happening jumbledly, but like, could somebody like even like do something silly like, okay, like I'm gonna awaken in the hara before I awaken to vast spacious emptiness, or you know, something
Sure.
like, because you can explore around and
Sure.
different things happen. So it's like, is vast spacious emptiness just like the prerequisite to the others, or like, can you kind of, I don't, it's probably not some super strict 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
no, you're right, David. Yeah, I can give you the quick answer there is you're right. Oftentimes well, basically it's up to God. So where does God choose to awaken in you first? And for some people, like for me when I was a kid, if I would just go outside at night, my consciousness would just become as big as the sky, and it was quite overwhelming and quite incredible and quite, kind of fun as just a little kid, just to go outside and just to feel like the lid of my head, was ripped off and my consciousness would pour out into the sky. And so it's up to God, and it's also up to how we practice. And so I will say this. Of course, it doesn't always go head, heart, gut. A lot of traditions, they focus on awakening the hara first. And the reason being is because it creates a great deal of stability of mind, stability of consciousness. And so a lot of traditions, especially Zen, start with awakening the hara first. In bhakti yoga traditions, of course, it's all about the heart, and you go and you're singing kirtan and just singing all these hymns to God. The heart bursts open first, and you might not even realize what vast spaciousness is. You just feel so much love. But now I'm going to say something completely contradictory. If you notice in any center, anywhere in your being, there's always vastness, there's always spaciousness. If you're truly open and honest. But when we open, say, in this area first, a lot of people open in this area first just because this is where they live, where they reside. I'm thinking. This is where all my memories are. This is where my thoughts are. This is where the character of I am is. And it's not a huge leap just to step back into the space out of which the thoughts arise, the character arises. And I'll even say it this way: this awakening tends to be the most shallow, and so it's the easiest. And by the most shallow, I mean it's just not that deep. It's not that deep. So it tends to be easier. When you awaken in the heart, truly awaken, it can be more difficult because in the heart tends to be veiled by emotions and pain and real suffering. And that stuff tends to be much more harder to navigate through or to heal or to liberate. And especially, it even gets even more heavy and dense in the hara. And in the first way I was speaking about it, when I was saying people start practicing in this way, they practice in this way and they start having experiences here, like with bhakti yoga, you're just singing hymns to God. Your heart may wake up, but it's not like a true non-dual awakening. It's just a really good heart chakra awakening, which, there's a distinction there, but I don't need to go too much into that. And can it jump around? Of course. Of course. And it will be as messy as necessary. As necessary. And by that I mean, just all of us, we have different karma. We have different things that are going on in our life. And so, I had all three waking up, and then I had all three imploding because my life was a mess. And then I'd have one wake up and start to open the other two. And then, eventually it all bleeds into one. Eventually you get to a place where there's not really a distinction. But in the beginning, it sure does feel like there's a distinction. And I just make the distinction because it's easier to talk about that way. So anyways, you are absolutely right. And this is a great myth on the path that, the Buddha sat down and he said, I was going to sit here and not get up until I'm enlightened. The Buddha probably said that 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. Like he sat down and he tried this and he tried that and he stood on his head and he did yoga and he chanted mantras and he went to this teacher and that teacher and he trained in the woods and this, he did all kinds of things and it was all very messy. But with myths, sometimes we paint these pictures that it was 1, 2, 3. And normally, if you really were with the person, there were probably times when they wanted to jump off a cliff, myself included, that it wasn't that clean, it wasn't that sweet, of an awakening. But it sure does make a good story, when it's 1, 2, 3. But it's just not necessarily the truth. As when we're human beings, as you see, most of us, human life is messy, often a disaster. And then we fall on our knees and discover something quite beautiful. And we start to get up and preach the good news and then become publicly humiliated and fall on our knees again and then go through that cycle 100 times before we, truly stabilize. So thanks for sharing, David. Okay. Let's invite Kristen to speak. Kristen, are you here?
Hi, it's Kirsten.
Oh, Kirsten. I apologize, Kirsten. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to, I guess it's a question of where I'm at in my process.
Yeah.
I've had a very smooth kundalini process, although initially I had fibromyalgia, but other than that, it's just really been a very gradual, no bells and whistles. And I think that there's a part of me that hears other people having bells and whistles with their kundalini process. And I'm finding that I want it just kind of to be like a marker of where am I in my development. My heart center is perhaps the one that has opened most clearly. I have the ability to understand emotional material very much, but I also can go into that silent heart space that is very, it's very tied for me to beauty and sacredness. So I can see that one. I feel it's like my terrain. It's my primary one that I understand. The mind, I think that I am in the clearing process and I know about spacious awareness, but I still have a lot of busyness in my mind, a lot of mental gunk that's, just observing patterns over and over. But I also kind of know how to do that. I can observe the thoughts and I'm observing stories and I can see through them. But the part where I'm wondering how to work through is the hara. I find that where I get stuck, I think I've mentioned it before, is there's, for me, there can be an addictive process with everything. It's not like with just one addiction. It's like with everything. Like there's, it can be food, it can be the internet, it can be, I'm doing my artwork and there's a compulsive part of it where I can't stop, you know, so I have that kind of energy going. And the other part where I feel that might be something to do with ahara is a resistance that I feel to life. And I had this since I was a child. Like I was very sensitive and I would get overwhelmed by life. And so my mom knew to put me in my room with books. And since I was like 2 or 3 years old, she would just give me my books and come pick me up half an hour later. And so there's a part of me that I've been noticing this incredible resistance to life. Every morning I wake up and it's like, I don't want to. And I'm a mom of 2 10-year-old boys. I pull myself up, I go to work, I get my stuff done. But there's this constant, I don't want to. And I have a feeling that it's a horror related kind of thing.
Yeah. So Kirsten, your question was beautiful. And I'll just say this again. Forgive me for getting your name wrong. The R before the I was what my brain was doing, and that's my dyslexia. That was one of my gifts of awakening. And so I just noticed it. I was like, oh yeah, look at that. There was a brilliant display of dyslexia. And so with the hara, basically the teaching is, can you go to the places that scare you? Can you embrace the places that scare you?
I can on the emotional. When it's very intense emotion, I actually can. But there's something about a physical resistance and wanting to numb something on a very more primal level that's happening for me.
Yeah. And like you said, also with the addiction, whatever it is, even if it's to something really good, if it's uncontrolled, if it's not within the realm of mastery, it's an issue. We're giving our power away. And of course, when the heart is truly awake and it's truly living in alignment, a couple things happen. We have our power, and ironically or paradoxically, we don't ask this question of where am I on the path. When the heart is fully relaxed and open, we just have a sense of I'm here. And of course, I've done work in the past, and of course, there's more work to do in the future. But in a sense, it becomes irrelevant. And so it's one of the hallmarks of when you stop asking, where am I at on the path? You've done really good in the hara. And I can remember that with myself, as I was always comparing myself and trying to position myself as here, this level, or here. And then one day, through embracing that which you fear, you no longer actually think about time. You no longer fear being here on planet Earth. And so, it doesn't matter whether it's mental, whether it's emotional or physical, they're all tied together. And so many of us have done emotional work, but there's still a physical aspect to the karma or to the pain or to the cellular memory. And it just means one thing: we need to meet it with more love, more inclusivity. And so if there's any aspect of ourself, so oftentimes if we have lots of thoughts or stories, or we have a busy mind, the only reason the mind is busy is because there's something in the body that feels outside of love and doesn't feel safe. And so when you feel safe and completely loved, what happens is your mind just becomes silent. It just becomes silent. It's a funny thing that happens. It's just kind of like a math equation. When you love everything within you and you feel safe fully, the mind becomes silent. So it's very rare that I ever have, you know, a really busy mind or, you know, emotional turmoil. Sometimes if it's a temporary stressor, you know, like if I step on a Lego or something, you know, like, you know, it's like, damn it, why was that there? But, you know, then it just falls away right away because there's, you know, I don't really have much persistence, you know, running thoughts. So, but in the past when I had lots and lots of running thoughts, is because there was something clenching, you know, physically. And then of course, on top of that was probably a swirling emotion. And I was like you, Kirsten, I was really good at working with emotions, and then my mind became silent. But then, you know, occasionally I would notice like a low grade, just like achiness or numbness or deadness or just kind of low grade panic or fear in the background. And I realized, oh, I need to soothe the body more fully and completely. You know, if you're a mother of twins, you know, it's like you know how to soothe children. And so we do the same thing to ourselves. The more you soothe the body and help it to feel safe and loved, and the more you make yourself important and are willing to take the time to go into the places that scare us. Again, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, it doesn't make a difference. But you go into all those places, you meet them with love, and the body deeply relaxes. And what you give birth to through that process is power, like the power of Buddha nature. It's immensely powerful. And when Buddha nature comes online fully, addictions tend to disappear. Because in order to be addicted to anything, you have to give your power away to it. Now, I think you said you were getting immersed in art. I'm not going to call that an addiction. You know, if you get immersed in art, to me, that's a beautiful thing. That's just like surrendering. And the more open you are, you'll find yourself immersed in anything. But if we're immersed in smoking or eating candy bars or whatever it is that people, other things, or in the internet, then that's not really a sign of mastery. You know, if any of us are truly honest, excuse me, especially in our belly, if you scroll too much on the internet, your belly should start to feel dead. It should start to feel numb. You could even start to float up out of your body, like in a out of body type of way, you know, disassociative type of way. You know, if you're just scrolling or getting lost in addiction. Whereas
I do the opposite. I contract and hunker down and like almost there's that resistance piece. I don't know if you could speak to that.
Well, that sounds like, in a sense, we're soothing pain. You know, like sometimes when people feel uncomfortable, they hunker down in their body and then they try to get lost in the internet. So oftentimes, you know, again, that's something. So if we're just mindful and say there wasn't a thing called the internet, but if we're just mindful and we're quiet, you know, like back in 1986, before there was cell phones and internet, and you started to feel dis-ease in the body, it's can you be with that? The problem with the internet now is no one experiences, you know, no one's willing to feel any dis-ease in the body. They just pick up, I'm looking for my phone, you know, they go and they pick up the phone right away and they start scrolling and they don't even realize they feel dis-ease. They're just, you know, scrolling and getting lost in the pictures on Instagram or whatever it is, or the new recipe for vegan chocolate brownies or whatever. And so people are so quick to pick up their phone. And I encourage you, well, don't pick up the phone. Just notice, like, what is this about? And sometimes we say, oh, it's nothing. It's just a little something. But when you really investigate what this resistance is, oftentimes we find it's actually a big monster here. Like, this is a total resistance to life. I don't actually want to be here at all. You know, so sometimes we just, if we're very mindful with just a little ache, a little numbness, we start to be real honest, like, what is this really about? Oh, there's an intense hatred toward life, or toward being alive, or toward God, or toward mom or dad, or. But the beautiful thing is once we meet it with love truly and love it to death, where there was this once old, vast, unconscious veil, there, instead of it being a vast veil, we can experience vast freedom with our feet here on planet Earth. And we may even begin to experience that our feet are planet Earth. Like our pelvis is planet Earth. Our belly is planet Earth. Our consciousness is planet Earth. And that feels much different than not wanting to be here. It feels more like I am life, not I am resistant to life. And I don't want to be here. I want to get out of here. I want to be enlightened so I don't have to be here anymore. To me, there's no truth in that. It's as I am enlightened, I realize I am here. And I am that. I am life. I am all of it. And so there's an immense doorway that's here. Yeah, but most of us, we don't look at the doorway. We just pick up our phone or the computer and start scrolling. And so I encourage you to really look and say, well, what is this resistance really? You know, to see the resistance, I like to think of the resistance, to give it a face as a small child. So you just give it the face of a small child. So if I think back to like the resistance I had in the past, it was always a scared kid, little kid who was trying to hide from his father. That's basically what it was. Is there's a scared little boy within me who was trying to hide from his father. He had those thoughts, he had those emotions, but he also had like that physical feeling of curling himself up into a little ball or trying to make himself hidden. And then it just became projected out onto the world, that the world is a dangerous place. And so I hide. I shut down. I try to make myself invisible. I try to go into the transcendent and not exist. Anything but to be here. And I realized, oh, just in this little childlike movement of fear within me. It's seemingly a little movement, but it was this massive overlay of my consciousness. And boy, did that veil life, veiled truth, veiled my existence. And so anyways, I encourage you to really sit with it. So if you notice any of that physical pain or suffering.
Yeah, as you speak, I'm realizing I've had a lot of accidents in my life. I think I have complex PTSD. I've been in 4 serious car accidents.
Yeah.
Where one of them, a relative of mine, died, and I had like 30 or 40 different horseback riding accidents. And I think that there's something.
That's a lot of accidents. 30 or 40 horseback riding accidents. That's a lot.
I used to do jumping, so it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that there might be a lot that I just need to sit with.
Yeah.
For sense of safety.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I'm glad you bring that up, and that's also something that I can acknowledge. It's just, as a kid, I grew up on a skateboard, and I just beat the hell out of my body, and then I came out to Colorado and started snowboarding and had, you know, too many concussions that I can count, and accidents, and running, you know, slamming into concrete with my head and this and that, my spine and my body. And at one point I just had this vision of just like someone taking a baseball bat to my body and to my bones. And in yoga, you know, they teach, well, your body is your temple. That's this. And for some of us, we haven't felt like, oh, it's this sweet temple. Some of us have felt like that life has beat us with a bat. You know, we've been rear-ended or smashed or mangled. We've been beat up, literally. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it this way. The beautiful thing about complex trauma, complex PTSD, is it teaches us, we're forced to learn unconditional love for this body, unconditional love. And I can say right now with transparency that the most spiritual practice I do now, time-wise, duration-wise, it has to do with me meeting my own body with physical love. Stretching it, healing it, holding it, supporting it. And so it's all about me loving this container, because I realize that there's aspects of this body that are still kind of holding on like that. There's still aspects that are saying, hey, I feel beat up. I need more love. I need to be included. I need to be met. I need someone to help soften me. I need some support here. And then the thing too is, not only do I have my pain, but I realize, oh, I have my father's pain within me. And so I'm meeting his pain, his life with love, my ancestors with love. And this is another hara thing where in the beginning of the path, when we start to realize how much pain is here, we think it's bad news. We think it's an obstacle. But the further we mature on the path, when we discover pain, we don't think of it as a bad thing. We just realize, oh, it's like our little girl coming to us like, hey, Daddy, can you help me? I fell down. I'm screaming. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to pick you up. Of course. So the love response is, of course. Whereas in the beginning, it's more like, there's way too much. I don't want to do this. Is there an easy way out? Should I do the direct path? Can I just bypass all this pain and suffering? But the further we walk, and as the hara opens up, we actually walk toward pain instead of away from it. And there's actually a different type of freedom in this. When you walk in the direction of hell instead of walk away from hell. And that may sound crazy or, not the right word, psychopathic, to say it that way. But there's a great truth in that. If you look at any good spiritual teacher, it's like, what are they doing? They spend all their time meeting with individuals who are in pain, trying to help them liberate pain. And so we do that same thing for ourselves. And it doesn't make a difference whether it's our pain or someone else's. I mean, it's all one, and it's all worthy of love. It's all worthy of love. How could it not be? How could it not be? And there's, I'll just reiterate this. There is massive freedom when we get over this, this programming that pain is bad or wrong or shouldn't be here. Because you look at the Buddha's first teaching, life is suffering. There's a tremendous amount of suffering here on planet Earth. But when you realize that's okay, and I'm going to meet whatever's here with love, of course, to the best of our ability, there's just great freedom in that. Where you're not saying, oh, this again. You more look at life and say, of course, of course this is happening. Of course it's happening. It's the dark world. It's a confused place. The ego will say, this is a dark world. I want to get the hell out of here. But the heart says, this is the dark world, and I want to meet it more. I want to meet it with love. It's worthy of love. That's why I'm here. And so anyways, so nice to have you, Kirsten. Yeah, of course. All right. A lot of questions tonight. Y'all are being brave tonight. Okay, how about Lisa? Lisa, are you here? Let me see if I can unmute you. I'm having some trouble here with my button pushing. Lisa, do you want to try to unmute now?
Okay.
There you are.
I'm very similar to Kirsten. The same thing that she asked. You know, it's almost like my walk is bipolar. I have the love for God and I see God and there's that intimacy. But on the other hand, I walk through my day and I experience almost like I feel like it's an indifference.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I have that sense of like, you know, when I meditate and really try and get down into the core, I hear and I know it sounds melodramatic, but the core down there is like, I don't deserve to live. And it's very similar to what you were expressing about your dad. I realized that I shrink to not be, and I'm an artist as well. And, you know, I realized that you can't create and hide at the same time, but that tension has always been in my life.
Yeah.
And to get into the hara it's there's a terror there to get in there.
Yeah.
And I know you have to face it with love, but you know, recently as I've been meditating, there's just so much pain coming up that it really doesn't even have, it's like nebulous. I don't know what, it's just a big ball, you know. I can't name it or make a story, nor do I really want to. But the feeling of this indifference. So I realized that, you know, I was washing my dishes and I was thinking about this indifference, but I also hold that indifference to God because I push him away. I push him away as well, you know, in the belief that I'm not loved.
Yeah.
Or maybe hold that there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm clear, but
Yeah, no, of course. And so one of the things that my teacher had me do was get a picture of myself when I was young, like the little boy me, and just put them on my altar. And I used to have all these pictures of all the great saints, you know, Vivekananda and Ramakrishna and Yogananda, and you know, pictures of my teachers and this and that. And you know, basically, he said, take all those down and just put a picture of like 5-year-old Craig, you know, up there. And I saw just this absolute preciousness of this child, you know, as I was meditating upon him. But then I also saw just this utter fear. And, you know, it like brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it, just the terror of being this innocent soul and in this house with this dad I was just like terrified of, but also would reach to him for love. And then, you know, he was a big drinker, so that didn't always work out, you know, excuse me, receiving love from him. And so I just sit and hold that child and let him sit in my lap and hold him again and again and again. So indifference is often a sign that there's something here that we know that we don't want to know. There's something here, you know, basically, like, you know, it's kind of like one of those things where you realize, oh, I know I'm not being good to my body. Like, I know I need to quit smoking. I know I need to, you know, not be so harsh to myself. I know I'm being too cold here. I know I'm too judgmental. I know I need to work out or whatever it is, but I'm not going to. You know? So if we have that unconscious thought where like I know it, but I'm going to like quickly kind of clinch and stuff it back down, the energetic feeling that will arise is indifference. And this is very much what I was speaking about with Jordan in the beginning, where I was saying your body will tell you when you're out of alignment with truth. It will let you know. And one of the things to look for is there indifference? Is there numbness? Is there deadness? Like a lot of people are really good at being spacious here, but they don't feel any love. And they say, well, I'm just going to keep focusing on truth or emptiness or freedom. I say, no, that's not going to work for you. Like you already did it here. You need to come down into your heart and begin to open to love. But people think of love as a really flowery thing. But when I say open to love, oftentimes it means you're sitting with, like you said, this nebulous ball of, all this emotion or pain or sadness or weirdness or just, like there's been things I've sat with just for years, or just like some weird clinch that was kind of angry and kind of sad and wanted to rip someone's head off, but, and hated itself, but was also really silent too, and just kind of like gnawing in the background. But when you turn to it, there's a funny thing, the indifference, indifference kind of just feels like numb, dead, like cold energy. But when you turn, you face the thing that scares you, you'll notice that indifference will turn into fire, and there'll be light, there'll be radiance. You'll feel a holiness flowing through your body. It'll be quite different than indifference. You feel like you're firing on all cylinders. And so this is a beautiful topic. It's a great thing. In the Buddhist world, what do they call it? They call it malaise. When there's just like a heavy, just like weird, just kind of icky, or maybe just silent heaviness. A depressed blanket, and that's kind of just laying over us, where we just shut down. And like you said, about being creative, you can't be shut down and be creative at the same time. Life doesn't let you get away with that. Your creativity starts to dry up. Yeah. So thanks, Lisa, for sharing your heart. And so this is a good question for any of us. What is it within me that I know that I don't want to know? What is it that I'm avoiding? What's hanging out in the background that I need to do something about? And keep in mind, the doing something about is, I'm referring to love. I need to love this aspect of myself. I need to be more kind. I need to soften. Where are the places I need to soften and include? And if you ever plateau on the spiritual path, it's almost always because of this. Because our next step is always right in front of us. But, if we ever feel real stagnant, it's because there's something here. And we're just kind of sort of ignoring. Kind of sort of ignoring this. And, like even in my relationship, my wife, she pointed this out a little bit ago. We kind of were hitting a wall and really plateauing around something. And, she said, well, maybe we should talk to someone. And I was kind of avoiding it. And then finally I said, okay, let's, it just got too dead. And I said, yeah, let's talk to someone. So we started talking to someone. And then it brought this whole other layer of love into our relationship. We've had some real breakthroughs recently. After some, some explosions, there was some breakthroughs, and it's beautiful, But if you try to avoid it or just try to, cover it up with a blanket, you plateau and then you stagnate, and then you realize, oh yeah, this isn't going anywhere. Yeah, so beautiful, Lisa. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Okay, well, here's another question I'm finding here. How about from Richard? Let's see, Richard. You here, Richard?
Hey.
There you are. Hi, Richard.
Hi, everybody. What's up, Chad? Good to see you. More of a comment today. I mean, I would love to hear you talk about it, but I get that Justina and Kyle also have a question in the chat. And since you're always so generous,
Okay.
I'm happy to just say something real quick and then pass it along. But I was listening to David Buckland. You're familiar with David Buckland, Craig? You did a
he's a friend of mine. Yeah, David's great. Yeah,
he is great. And he's had a conversation kind of series on YouTube with a teacher named Andrew Hewson, talking about the stages of enlightenment, which both of them are kind of, David that's like his specialty.
Yeah.
And Andrew is also really knowledgeable in that area. And it's really beautiful there. In one of the videos, as Andrew was introducing it, he was talking about, be wary of using these stages to kind of locate yourself or to compare, because at each of these stages is kind of awareness is waking up to itself in different ways, or divinity is waking up to itself in different ways. There is a deep sacredness.
Yeah.
And right, the only thing playing the comparison game is the personality structure or the ego. And I thought it was really, this will be the last thing that I say, is really funny. I was speaking with a member of this Sangha about an awakening that he was experiencing. And it was funny to see my ego go off and be like, this person's around the same age, they're farther along the path, what the hell is going on? And then what is awakened me was just experiencing tremendous joy.
Yeah.
Almost the kind of ecstasy, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of waking up to myself there in such fullness. Yeah. And there's so much resonance in that.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so beautiful. Andrew kind of communicating that, it reminded me of that experience with one of our Sangha members. And I thought I'd just communicate that real quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Richard. Yeah. Anytime we're playing the comparison game, it's actually arising out of fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being kicked out of the tribe, fear of, like, am I safe? Am I safe in this place where I'm at? Do I feel good about myself? Do I feel worthy enough? So it's important to look at these things. And the beautiful thing, like I was saying with Kirsten, was at some point when the gut really wakes up, the idea of comparison, it just disappears, because you feel so good as what you are. Like, there just feels like, I am enough. I'm enough. And if I have to go through another 1,000 levels of whatever, that's okay. If I have to go through one more, it becomes irrelevant. The whole comparison game becomes irrelevant. And what you'll begin to discover is basically that comparison is a game of division. I'm here and I want to go there. A lot of people, especially people who are, say, too smart, they get sucked into this trap. I've laughed with David Buckland a little bit because he's too smart. Me and him have joked about it. What a lot of people don't know about David Buckland is he is one of the funniest, goofiest guys ever. But if you talk to him, you just walked up to him, talked to him about the stages of enlightenment, he could, tell you a discourse and tell you all these things, and you could get really excited or fall really asleep, depending on how you're wired. But I've hung out with David late night and just been goofy as could be with him, and we have a good time together. But it really is a trap. And the thing that my teacher used to say to me was, like, Craig, what's your next step? Because that's what's relevant. What's your next step? That's the thing you need to focus on, Craig. That's your next step. Not where this teacher is, or this type of thing, or that type of thing, or this realm or that realm. What's your next step? What are you resisting? What are you resisting? So anyways, thanks for sharing, Richard. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is good. I need to look in the chat here, the questions. I'll see if I can hurry up too. Hi, Craig. This is a question about Wednesday meditation. Sometimes I have quite strong emotions that come up that I would like to lovingly sit with, but then the instruction is to unhook from the emotion, take a step back, gets me a little mixed up as to what to do. So I want to be clear here. So sitting with an emotion and unhooking and taking a step back, those are really similar things. So when I say unhook and step back, that means unhook from the story and step back. When you step back, I encourage you to fully be with your experience. So a great way to work with emotions in a masterful way is to, in a sense, quickly validate the story. So if you have painful emotion, quickly validate it, like that's really hard, and then unhook from it, and then feel the sensation of the emotion fully. When you feel an emotion fully, emotions tend to move and empty out of us. Then, like I was speaking about before, the mind becomes silent because there's no emotion driving the mind, and healing has occurred in the emotional center. And so you unhook and you sit with them and you feel them fully, then they release, and then you're left with radiance in your heart, love, space, freedom, power, strength. How do you balance holding space for emotions that have come up for healing and unhooking and taking a step back from human nature? Yeah, the big thing is don't get on the thought bus. Because the thing that happens, and most of us probably know this experience, if you ever get really angry, if you feel the anger fully, like the fire and the heat of the anger, and really just let go of the story, the anger will be with you for a short period of time. But if you don't feel the heat and the fire of the anger, but instead think about why you're angry, you could be angry for 30 years before that releases. And so I encourage you, let go of the story and just feel the pain, the hurt, the heartache, the rejection. When you feel it fully, meet it with love, the story dissolves. And so does the emotion. So does the emotion. A beautiful question, Justina. Here's another one from Kyle. Hi, Craig. My question is about being in but not of the world. I recognize the importance of finding a job just to pay the bills in the short term. Beyond this, it is important to find a career that is aligned with our talents and passion in order to serve and enjoy. However, this society is filled with collective fear and confusion, which makes it difficult to fully express our full, authentic selves and opinions. So right there, Kyle, you're stepping out of truth. So I don't want you to worry about what society is or is not doing. I want you to live your truth, or I encourage you to live your truth, despite what society is doing, despite what the world is doing. So yes, this is a dark planet, but your job is to be the light. He goes on to write, this makes it difficult when we feel our calling is to fully express ourselves fully in our opinions in our career, but you receive backlash from colleagues, customers, bosses, etc., who disagree with you. When do we know it is the right time to leave a job that we thought was in alignment with our Dharma, but it seems to be holding us back spontaneously? So Kyle, this is really a question for your heart. And so sometimes our work is difficult, sometimes it's painful, and the ego has this idea, if I'm not fully supported, I'm not living in truth. Sometimes God puts you in a job where you're supposed to go against the grain. You know, that was the entire life of, say, Gandhi or Martin Luther King, or where you just feel like you're walking an uphill battle. Sometimes that's part of our Dharma, is to be in a place where we're not supported at all, but we're bringing forth new ideas, new wisdom, more love. And everyone around us may disagree, but then 5 years later, they may be like, hey, thanks so much for being you. Thanks so much for sharing your heart. Thanks so much. People have this idea that if I'm a spiritual teacher or a healer, or living my truth, that all life will come and applaud you and say, bravo. But normally the first time you step, into the realm of being a healer, a teacher, singer, artist, or whatever it is. A lot of times the first thing you're met with is attacks and swords, flaming arrows from the tribe, you know? And so there's difficulty everywhere. Look what they did to Christ. You know, look what they did to Christ. There's difficulty everywhere. Your job is to live your truth, no matter what the world is doing. And so if you have a question of, should I leave my current career and step into something more in alignment? That's really a question for your heart, Kyle. For your heart. And the mind oftentimes has this vision that I'm going to quit one thing and start another. And the mind tends to forget that this is an evolutionary world. An evolutionary world. Sometimes it takes, almost always it takes a transition period. So if you're going to move into something more of a heart calling, don't expect to be paid right away. It's possible. But, I mean, my first, probably 4 years of teaching, I made negative money, so I made negative money in teaching. I had to do side work and hustle, I had to hustle here and there before I actually, made any money, that resembled, resembled any kind of support. And so that's really common when people step out into a heart-centered path. Oftentimes you have to fight for it. But it's a good fight. It helps you develop a confidence in what you're doing and what you're doing. So Kyle, if you want to transition, ask your heart when the time is. And of course, include some transition time. Transition time. All right. Let's see here. I think I did my part there. Let me just check a couple other questions here that popped up. Hi, Craig. From a non-dual perspective, what is the role of pursuing selflessness? Thank you, from Anna. I'll say this about selflessness. I don't encourage anyone to pursue selflessness. There's a funny thing that happens. The more you love yourself, which may sound selfish, but the more you love yourself, the more selfless you actually become. So the more you're willing to embrace the child within you, your ancestors, your ego, your critic, the inner alcoholic or addict, the more you love yourself, the more you'll naturally love others. In a lot of paths, they tell you to ignore yourself, like make yourself last. And then do good works in the world to gain merit. But oftentimes there's a really kind of sick, twisted psychological thing that can happen where you're hating yourself and making yourself last and then projecting onto others and becoming really judgmental of others because you judge yourself. But when you love yourself fully and completely, you live for others because you see yourself in everyone. You see no division between you and anything. You've gotten to know your heart, and your heart just wants to love and adore everyone, everything. And so I don't encourage anyone to pursue selflessness. Normally that backfires. Love yourself to death. And you'll find you'll very quickly be loving everyone and everything. The more you love you, the less walls there are between you and life. And when you love you fully, then there's no wall between you and God can flow love through you to all beings. Okay. Hi, Craig. How do we work with communication? Sometimes I have a hard time connecting with others, starting conversations. I believe I understand people and I can feel how they're feeling. I just get stumped sometimes when it comes to speaking. Hannah, this is probably a throat chakra thing. I'm going to encourage you to start singing in the shower and then singing publicly. When the throat chakra is relaxed, the intelligence of the heart comes forward, and then it becomes really easy to speak to anyone and everyone. When the throat chakra is constricted, for a number of reasons, oftentimes it's unworthiness, oftentimes it's fear of rejection, and so sometimes some counseling work is supportive with that. And really asking yourself, do I trust that it's okay to speak? Do I trust that it's okay to speak? So a lot of times we'll have a critic that tells us we're not allowed to speak, and it makes us choked up. I spent a good 10 or 12 years of my adult life struggling with that very thing. And basically, I started raising my hand, putting myself at the front of the line and speaking, even if I was shaking and trembling inside and sweating. And, in a sense, you just have to get over it through facing it. But a big part of it is you meeting that critic with love and softening around that. Hi, Craig. What are the hallmarks of Kundalini awakening? It sounds like the experience varies a lot. Yeah, boy, that's a big question. I'll be real quick with that one. So a lot of times with Kundalini awakening, you'll notice pressure in the lower spine. And as you soften around that pressure, begin to trust and surrender there, there'll be a rush of energy up the spine. And the rush may go up the spine 2 inches, may go up 2 feet to your heart chakra, may go up another foot or so to your head. But boy, can it be a real big, messy journey. Kundalini awakening, it often has to do with pressure and energy, light, brilliance, fire, heat, along the spine. That starts in the pelvis. Sometimes it can go top down. That's a little bit more rare. In each chakra center, Andrew, there's going to be a big firework type experience. And by that, I mean you realize the truth in each center as the Kundalini works through it. So what's the hallmark of it? Basically, if I just said Kundalini awakening is a very physical, non-dual spiritual awakening, that sums it up. By physical, I mean there's lots of feelings, sensations, movements, that type of thing. Is the hara below the solar plexus? Yes. So imagine your heart chakra, and then your solar plexus is kind of where your rib cage comes together. So that's a chakra there. The hara is, I want you to imagine if you place your hand just right below your belly button, like you're holding your hara there. Your second chakra. Hi, Craig. I'm curious about your thoughts about this whole cosmic reset thing. I spoke a little bit about that last week, Colleen. Yes, we're in a great cosmic reset. So do I need to say more? So resets are times of great confusion, great chaos, great turmoil. Sometimes we just have a whole lot of nothing, where we're sent home from work and we're twiddling our thumbs for hours a day. And we say, you know what? Maybe I want to spend this time meditating. So a lot of us have been giving time off. So it's a time to reflect, to really look at what's going on in the world, what's going on in my life, what kind of person am I, who am I, how do I want to live? Astrologically, it is happening right now. So I'm not really thinking about it, I'm noticing it. It's been painful and confusing and messy. Some people are going broke during this time. A lot of people, when you're forced to transition, but not by your own choice. A lot of people will revolt and freak out and argue and resist. Old addictions come up, you know, like, like the thing that a lot of people said when they walked down the street, during the beginning of the pandemic, and they looked in their neighbors' recycling bins, it was full of vodka bottles. It's because people were resisting this transition, and they started drinking heavily. I saw a thing on the news in Mexico at Costco. People were getting pallets of beer when they realized they had to stay home from work with their wife and kids. And so during a reset, we have this great question. Who am I and how am I going to live? Like, how am I going to go forward in my life? Am I going to go forward with the lowest aspect of the collective consciousness or the highest? Am I going to awaken to Christ consciousness? Or am I going to start buying lots and lots of guns and ammunition? Like right now, you can't buy ammo, and all the gun stores have empty shelves because some people are trying to go backwards. So in theory, we want to go forward. Hi, Craig. Years after my awakening started, the energy used to feel like it was rushing up through me and out my head. Now it feels like it's glowing out from me everywhere. Is this normal? Laura, this is absolutely normal. This is beautiful. You've awoken and you're beginning to transmit light. And so, why don't we all end with this? We are awakening and transmitting light. So I'm going to invite you just to gently close your eyes. Envision your light shining out to your family, to your connections with your friends, into your community, and into this world. Lord, make us conduits for thy grace, thy peace, thy love. And so nice to be with each and every one of you. So much love. Thank you all for your donations and all your support. So kind of you to share your hearts with me, to support this Sangha in any way you can. I'll see y'all next time. Good night, everyone. Bye for now.